What up, fam? I'm just kidding. I can't see. I don't know. You guys need to tell me if I can say what up, fam, or not. Anyway, welcome back to another episode. I'm Matt C. Smith. Not behind the camera today. Next to me is
Tangen. Rufus Tangen.
Oh, okay. I see you did that.
I learned.
Welcome back to another episode. Today, Rufus and I like to just chat about interesting things that we see in the news and the press. I try to sort of add some insight if I have some, and ask some interesting questions. And hey, if you write some questions below in the comments, we will answer them in the next video. Trust me, we will call you out and we'll answer your questions. So let us know. Rufus, what are we talking about today?
Today I want to take up a topic that I'm curious about. And right now I have the Sifted webpage.
Sifted.eu, big fan of. I'm subscribed to Sifted. Love those guys and girls. They really do an amazing job challenging TechCrunch and all the legacy leading tech journalistic platforms. Anyway, we'll link them below. Check them out.
Yeah. And one of the topics I want to ask you about is why is all the headlines of the articles they're putting out is companies that raise money? Like right here, it's like BlaBlaCar raised $115 million, and it's a fintech company raised, is a scooter startup that raised. Almost every article has like this company raised that money, that company raised that money. Why is that so important, and why is they're putting so much weight into why they're raising and how they're raising?
Rufus, is an interesting question you bring up, actually, because, and this is not exclusive to Sifted, every news channel does this, actually. Sifted, probably the least so. They really do some really good journalistic pieces. This is not sponsored. I just really support them. I love those guys. Anyway, dude, I've thought about this so much because, firstly, why do all these journalistic platforms, TechCrunch, all of them, why do they pretty much exclusively report as their feature stories on fundraising? Firstly, fundraising is sexy, obviously. Let's be honest. Like hearing about big valuations, and it's correct to celebrate successes. But let's just pause for a second and realize what we're doing. We're basically celebrating the fact that someone has given up a percentage of their company for a lot of money with a lot of pressure to execute and deliver over a period of time. We're not actually celebrating a win. We're just celebrating the success that someone's managed to convince some investors to actually give some money to them, right? And obviously there's some growth and some traction and things like that behind that. So to be honest with you, you're not celebrating a win. You're celebrating the fact that someone's now going to have to go through a 12 to 18 months of crazy growth period, depending on obviously how much money they're raising and who from. But I feel like often we put too much weight on the fundraising moments and the anniversaries of that versus the real anniversaries, like our first 1,000 customers, our first 10,000 customers. Like that, I feel like that should be newsworthy. I think it'd be interesting if like startups could actually go to news and say, hey, we just hit 10,000 customers. Write an article about that. How did you get 10,000 customers? We just, if it's obviously not private and things like that, or confidential, but talk about the growth success journey of the company, not just like we raised a bunch of money. But the reason for that is obviously the VCs, think about it this way. VCs need to invest in companies, right? That's their business model. They get money from LPs, limited partners they're called. That can be endowment funds, it can be family offices, rich families, you name it, right? And they say that over the next 10 years, we're going to invest or the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to invest your $100 million. So they're under pressure to invest. Now, if they go and invest in a bunch of companies and there's no press about it, you know, they need to invest in a company, and then they have good context with the press. The press announce that, then they show their LPs. Oh, look, we're hitting the headlines. You know, like so. A lot of it's playing this VC dance of like wanting to be seen and be heard, and also, you know, VCs. How can VCs hit the headlines? What do VCs do? Fundraise or invest.
Yeah.
So the only way they can get in the headlines is if their investments are in the headlines. Whereas startups, you know, can talk about, you know, scaling into new markets and launching new products and successes and things like that. But the only thing VCs, and money rules everything, let's be honest, the only thing that VCs have as a way to get in the headlines is fundraising news. So that kind of makes you realize what controls the news and press in the industry.
Okay.
It's the money that controls things.
So VC goes out to the press,
Correct.
publish this to actually make it seems like the company more successful, and that's why
I'm not pretending that there's any sort of like smoke and mirrors here. The companies are all successful and they're raising that money, and the VCs all have the best intentions. I'm just trying to make you understand the point that like the reason you see so much fundraising news is because the VCs, the only thing that the VCs do which is newsworthy is investments. Yeah. And that's why you see so much press around that, because we should definitely celebrate the wins and we should definitely talk about that kind of stuff. But I do feel like there should be less emphasis on fundraising news and they raised this again. Definitely make an article about it, celebrate it, but talk more about what is the capital going towards. And some of them do this, right? Obviously, I'm not complaining about it, but it is just funny how, and then also the only thing is then in the newspapers, all we see is fundraising news. So then all of us get brainwashed into this over emphasis on fundraising. Yeah. When in fact, a lot of companies can achieve great success and growth rates without having to fundraise as much as they maybe think they need to, because they're brainwashed to think that every single 12 to 18 months they need to announce some new fundraising news, a new VC coming in, etc. Right? So there's an element to there which is sort of like the industry is defined by media. Who defines the media? The money. Who has the money? The VCs. So the VCs are defining the industry and the expectations. So that actually it's a never-ending circle, because the VCs are making the press only talk about the fundraising news, and then the startups think they need to raise more funding, so they go to the VCs, and therefore the whole circle's completed. Who's controlling it? Who's the puppeteer here? The VCs. Yeah. Again, this is a theory, but I don't know. It kind of sounds like it could be true. I've been a VC, so yeah.
That is true. So you don't think it's a lack of startups that's reaching out to the press?
Oh God, no! God, no. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't think it's a lack of startups reaching out to press. But think about it this way: like, also another bone to pick was like press and things like that. Again, I'm not picking any news agent or any article, any platform here. I have no bone to pick with any of them. They're all great. I admire all of them. But why do all of us in the startup industry think that the personification of an entrepreneur is a 25-year-old white male sitting in a co-working space or a cool cafe like we are in right now, with his little Apple Mac that his parents bought him, paying his rent and hacking away? Whilst that is also a little bit true about the industry, unfortunately, it's very white male dominated. But the media wants to report on the underdog. The media likes sexy stories, so they're much prefer to report on a startup that's just raised 5 million, that's got a 23-year-old founder come from Stanford, dropout Stanford guy or girl, mostly guy, than the 43-year-old third-time serial entrepreneur who's raised another round, 2 exits. What's sexier? Because the 43-year-old's got 3 children and doesn't go out anymore, but is 4 times more successful than the 23-year-old. But what's the sexiest story to report on? So therefore, again, talking about media like brainwashing, and I'm not saying brainwashing because that would assume that there's actually an intent to brainwash. But I just think that PR and press, they need to focus on stories, right? Yeah. And what sells, or what effectively sells, or what's catchy is is that underdog at 23 years old against it all. And it is a nice story, and I'm not saying don't report on that, but I think the reality is that the average age of an entrepreneur globally is 42 years old, not 23 years old. And in fact, the longer you wait and the more experience you gain, whether it be in a startup or in a corporate before you start your own company, the higher the likelihood of success. So in fact, the more successful entrepreneurs are in their 30s and 40s, whether they're first time or fifth time, right? Okay. Versus that first time one-hit wonder or just lucky, smart person who does something. But we hear more about those lucky, smart, or one-hit wonders in the 20s because it's more mediable, it's more consumable, it's more sexy.
Everyone wants a hero.
Everyone wants a hero, exactly. And like a 43-year-old guy who's been working, or girl, in the industry for like almost 2 decades and then starts a really exciting company is less of a sexy story than the, college dropout, right?
But it's also some destroying part to it, because I'm 28 and if I read the list 30 under 30 and I'm like, yep, that's the 20-year-old guy that was made like already $1 billion. Then I feel like old and like, oh, I'm way behind.
But this is a big, again, and that's why I have like my small bone to pick with media, because it only reports on those types of things. Because the reality of it is there is no time pressure to create anything. And like I just mentioned, the longer you wait, because I felt that I'm completely guilty of that too. I was like, I started my company when I was 27 because I felt the pressure that it it was a combination of events that resulted in me doing so. But I also did feel that time tick before 30, right? And the reality of it was that, to be honest, I did it when I was 27, which still young, but like a little bit older. Fortunately, I'd got a bunch, 7 years experience or 6 years experience by then, which really helped me. And I was lucky enough to work in VC, which is almost like double experience because you both invest and work with startups. So the reality is, the longer you wait, the more value you're going to be adding to your idea, the more likelihood of the success. So don't get brainwashed that you need to do anything by 25, 30, or 35. Do it when it is right. Also, I do understand, of course, the opportunity cost increases the older you get. The stakes are higher. Maybe you get a partner, a mortgage, all this kind of stuff, right? Therefore, that's why there's a likelihood of you actually dropping out. The opportunity cost decreases. But in reality, the opportunity cost dynamic has changed because, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to create an e-commerce company to sell something online would cost you millions and take you years. But with technology's advancement, like I've mentioned in other episodes of this, the service industry around startups, like startups to help startups, the startup stack of technologies that help you achieve your goal is just unbelievable to this day. So you could literally, for $20 a month, create a website, sell some stuff, convert things, Stripe, crazy. You name it, right? All of that stuff so simply. So the opportunity cost has actually reduced. So you can actually do this and achieve this kind of stuff while you're still working. But obviously the big difference that people confuse with all of this as well, because of the fundraising brainwashing, is that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to create a company, you have to go through VC funding, you have to do all this crazy stuff, right? It's not the case, because also the cost requirement to create companies today is a lot lower. The only thing that gets expensive is when you need to grow and build unique proprietary technologies and innovate in an industry. So you need to decide if you want to be a lifestyle entrepreneur, which is totally fine, and that's the majority of entrepreneurs to this day, and we're going to see increasing stock of that, whether you're selling a service or selling a product or whatever, versus becoming a startup tech entrepreneur where you need to actually raise money and raise 5 rounds in 7-8 years and then sell, basically.
Wow, that's such a great message. And on the other flip side, what newsletters do you use to get all the information and stay on top?
It's funny. I had a question from a friend in New York, and he was like, "Dude, how do you consume information? And then how do you order that information? Where do you put it?" Well, I mean, my notes on my phone is what I do, but so I subscribe to the New York Times. Just because it's interesting, because I like their reporting, and I also want to have a touch point on the US, and you can select what things, obviously I get entertainment, I get media, I get tech and things like that, right? Some politics, right? Because they do nice little articles on my phone. So I do that. It's like $1 a month or a week. I think it's a month. It's super cheap. So I do that. And then Sifted, I subscribe to Sifted because also, quite honestly, I think if you just get free resources from media, you pay for what you get and you get what you pay for, right? So if you just try and go through these news vendors on the free services, odds are you're not going to build an allegiance or an alliance with one of them. You're not going to, you're less likely to come back to that one more frequently. Whereas I subscribe to Sifted because I think they're great. They're EU focused. They're journalistic, very high journalistic storytelling, but really good weighting. And they are also the new kid on the block, even though they're 2 years old now. But they're going up against TechCrunch, and I kind of like an underdog to support them against that. TechCrunch is very US focused, and they do a great job, and they're the old legacy player in the game. But I think, quite honestly, Sifted is one of my favorite. Tech.eu, a Shifter in Oslo, which is obviously a local one. But my recommendation to anyone is we all walk around talking about things with different people all the time. Where's your source of information? Is it free or paid? You're more likely to have a more weighted and better opinion of things if you pay for a service. So that's why I pay for Sifted.
Okay. Do you also, when you find an interesting story, do you also go into that story from different angles? So you read it on New York Times, then you also want to read it on
done at the time. Well, I mean, interesting question. No, because that sounds like a research piece to me. I don't need to.
Okay, yeah.
No, I don't. I mean,
you trust the
I read
source
an article.
and then
I trust the source, and then if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to get in trouble if I'm wrong. No. And I'm not going to develop any sort of strange opinions out of those kind of things. But I just quite enjoy, and also reading news and things like that as well. It's a time-consuming thing, to be honest. Yeah. So you have to make time for it. And like anything in life, you have to create a positive small habit to benefit from it, right? So I'm actually if I'm completely honest with you, I am currently not reading anything actually at the moment, which is something about 2 months ago I was really good at. Every morning reading some articles for half an hour or whatever. And this morning actually, This morning I had my notification from the New York Times, and I was like, nah, because I'm just not in that mode right now. But I'll get back into that. So right now I'm not that informed. So don't ask me any difficult questions about political or timely events. But yeah, anyway, I think making a positive habit of it is a good thing.
I love how this spun out to like reading all articles and getting the information.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you read?
What I read? I read economical newspaper in Norway, mostly to just stay on top of like stocks.
Finansavisen.
Finansavisen. Yeah.
It's a Norwegian thing. Finansavisen.
I read that, but other than that, I don't read so much news. Like I like to stay outside of the news circle because I don't want to know all about the drama in the world. I want to live in the world where I
You want to live in a bubble.
Yeah, I want to live in a bubble, but I don't think I benefits from knowing like 10 key people got killed or whatever. I don't think I benefits from that. Yeah. So I want to stay in a positive rhythm of the news I get and what I impacted with.
Cool. What do you listen or read to? I say listen to because also you can listen to news-based podcasts, which is quite good. The Daily from New York Times is a great one. But I'm curious, what if you have any good suggestions, any email lists? And here's a question, actually. Rufus and I have been talking about this. We were inspired by, I tested this out about 3 years ago. I did a 90-second morning chat with Matt or something like that, which we never actually released. We filmed a pilot, though. Anyway, and then I saw that Slidebean are a really great YouTube channel. Go check them out. We'll link them below as well. They're an inspiration for us. They started to do 5-minute news, like we're doing right now. Pick a topic, talk about it for a little bit. Obviously, not you're not going to get all your news sources from there. Obviously, focus on tech. But I thought about us doing something like that for Europe, actually, because they're doing something for the US there. Well, international. We could do a European focused one, because I feel like I can have a really nice news agent voice or something like that. But it'd be interesting, actually. So let us know if you want us to do something like that. If that's something you're missing in your life, we could do. It could be audio based. It could be 10. Actually, also let us know how long you would want that to be. 5, 10, 15 minutes long, for example. Released at 7 a.m. in the morning, so you could listen to it while you're making your coffee, while you're on the tram. And it would basically be like, the things we're chatting about. Would you want it daily? Would you want it weekly? Twice a week? 3 times a week? Let us know. I'd be curious to know, actually. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rufus, what do we tell the people?
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and see you next time.
See you in the next video. Ciao. I did a Queen's wave there. I was like, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.